Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day to you. I have some pretty cool updates to share with you this morning, and just want to kind of summarize again the format for those who maybe haven't seen it before. This is a morning update where I talk about what I've done in the past several days, the plan for the next coming days, and then I answer any questions or comments from the previous episode. I do this mostly for my own accountability to keep these projects moving, but also as a regular update for those of you who are interested. All right, so first things first, we're going to talk about progress over here on the shaper. So, over on the lathe and the shaper. Now, last time I talked with you on Monday, we were talking about this treadmill motor that I installed here on the lathe drivetrain, and I was having problems with the belt and different things, and I thought I was going to have to redo all of the linkage there for the lathe. I spent a little bit of time on Monday just working on that, like getting it sorted out, getting the alignment right, kind of monkeying with it. I redid this where I took a couple bars and I screwed them into this piece of wood. I actually shifted everything over slightly here. I used these two pieces of square stock screwed down into this wood, and that way I could make fine adjustments to this whole apparatus. Previously it was just screwed directly into the wood, but that didn't afford me any movement. That is some of the types of adjustments that I added. I also played around with the positioning of this, which is clamped. There's just a couple bolts here, so it's clamped onto this back riser piece, and that got the motor pulley aligned well enough with the pulley that I made to go up here on this counter shaft that the belt wasn't, hopping off the pulleys. So let's see. The other thing was the direction. So when it is driving the when it's driving the lathe, the motor is actually running in the direction to where the pulley unscrews from the treadmill motor. So when it's going this direction, it's a left-hand thread. Yeah, so turning the motor shaft, or turning the pulley to the right, it's a left-hand thread. It backs it off, but I got confused, and so I tightened it really tight, and I haven't been able to get it to come off intentionally, so maybe it'll stay on there when it's driving the lathe. We'll see if it does. I'll have to put in a set screw or something, but long story short, Monday I got this pretty well fixed. Tuesday, I switched my attention to the electronics, so let me relocate this camera here, see if I can give you an idea as to what I've got going on. Yeah, okay, so some of the comments were related to, maybe these were Instagram comments, but some of the comments were related to why do you need an Arduino to control this motor, considering that I've got can't quite see it there, this is actually the controller board. It's mounted on the side of the lathe cart, and it is actually what's providing the power electronics control of the treadmill motor. It must have some type of built-in feedback mechanism, possibly from the commutator, like sensing, that maintains a speed. So you provide a speed set point. In the treadmill, you do that from the little touch pan, where you're running on the treadmill, and you put in 5 miles an hour or 7 kilometers an hour or something like that, and it sets a speed on the treadmill to keep you running. That is what the Arduino is doing. The Arduino here is providing let's see if we can get that showing on the screen, but the Arduino is providing that speed control for the treadmill motor. I rigged up a little LCD to tell me what the set point is, so I can vary the speed using this potentiometer here. I can vary the speed a bit, you know, and it was really fabulous. Boy, I just have so much that I've done in the past 3 days. I'm really proud of where it's at right now. But essentially, Tuesday I spent a lot of time with the Arduino and the Arduino code, getting it coded up to send controls to the power electronics board that drives the treadmill motor. There's also a prox sensor on it. This proximity sensor, there's a magnet in the pulley from the treadmill. So when that is hooked up, I get a little, I get an actual feedback of the RPM that pulley is turning. Now that's not necessarily the lathe spindle's RPM because there's a difference of pulley diameter between here and there. So eventually I may put a magnet on the actual spindle of the lathe, and that way, you know, this proximity sensor can actually pick up the lathe spindle RPM and provide that feedback. Yeah. So you can probably see in this trace there is a PWM signal. Right now I have the PWM signal decoupled from the actual lathe. So you can see as I change this, well, I gotta actually change it. So you can see that the duration of the high portions of the PWM signal are changing. You can see that the display, you know, is showing, you know, 1300 RPMs here. It's showing something like 100 RPMs here, and the duration of that high signal changed. So now let's go ahead and hook it up and drive this system. Let me get you pointed at the right direction here. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm actually hooking the output of the Arduino to the lathe controller, or to the treadmill motor controller. And you can see the lathe is turning in reverse. And what I did on Tuesday, no, it's yesterday. So what I did yesterday is I turned this, which is just basically it slips over this half-inch shaft that the pulley is mounted on. It's got a center in it, so that way I didn't have to put a center in that half-inch rod. I'm skipping over stuff. On Tuesday, after I was messed with the Arduino code, I turned down the spindle front a little bit, cleaned it up, and then I installed this adapter plate. I got the chuck installed. The chuck is really running very true now, like less than 1,000 run out. I turned this part over here, the slip over center for that half-inch shaft, out of steel, and before I'd really had to have monkeyed with it a lot, and now this shape, or this chuck to adapter interface is just great. So I'm really happy with the overall performance of the lathe right now, especially with this ability to slow the speed way down. It's just performing great. Now that I've got, okay, so that's kind of the update from what I've been working on, and to talk about what I'm going to be doing today and tomorrow, I am back over onto the shaper. You can see that I've got the shaper vise on the shaper work table over there, so I need to pull the lathe cart out a little bit so I can get on that side of it. I'm going to work on that shaper vise, get it trued up, and then it's back to mill work where I need to machine down the inside of this spindle head for the mill. So back on track there. And then I guess let me look through here, comments, see who all we've got here. Blackbeard Projects, cool. Let's see. Silac has a video request, 3D printed aluminum investment casting. I've got that bell over there that's going to be coming. It's not aluminum, but really the 3D printed aluminum, or 3D printed patterns in general are nice for high detail castings that you really can't get with Lost Phone. Lost Phone's better for big stuff. So things that I'm going to be casting in the near term for the mill, they're much better. You're much better off doing 3D, doing a Lost Foam casting. So maybe we'll do some aluminum investment casting, but probably not anytime soon. What's the BLDC controller you are using? BLDC, drawing a blank here. BLDC. I think you're talking about the power electronics controller for the treadmill motor. It's just the unit that came out at the bottom of the treadmill. I think it's a Gold's Gym 400T or something like that. If you're really... what I did was I went to an auction, and they had a treadmill. And like everybody goes for this weird, you know, like Coca-Cola signs and things that are particularly, you know, that's not my thing. But people don't want like things like a treadmill, like a rundown treadmill that's 20 years old. I do, because it's got power, you know, it's got a DC motor. I did Google because I bought a treadmill motor. I bought a treadmill before. The motor that was on here before came out of a treadmill, but it was AC, and it had like a, you know, a screw cable adjustment thing that adjusted the pulley diameter, essentially. And that's how it changed the speed. But it was an AC motor, not very helpful for this kind of... Uh-oh, we've got something stalled out over there. I guess I probably need to... Belt slipping. Probably need to stop that. Sorry, how embarrassing. At any rate, yeah, so... I went to the auction, I got on my phone, and I checked out to make sure that the particular model that I was contemplating bidding on made sure that it had a DC motor. And so I wasn't expecting to be able to reuse the power controller, but I'm glad that that came along with it. Brushless DC. It's actually not a brushless DC. Thank you, Robert Nierenberg. Brushless DC. Yes, it's not brushless. There are brushes here in the back. Is the shaper going to machine some mill pieces? Yes, yes. That is, so the vise that I'm working on right now, that's currently affixed to the shaper table, that vise is going to hold the spindle head. The spindle head is the first piece that I will be machining using, well, I guess I'm machining the vise for the shaper, but after the vise for the shaper is done, I'm going to put this part, the spindle head for the mill, into the vise on the shaper, and I'm going to save myself the trouble of sanding this channel. It will be considerably more work than it would be to just do it the way that I'm familiar with, but that's the nature of learning something new and getting over that learning curve. And yeah, and I'm just super excited to get back using the shaper. Did the concrete bed help with the shaper's stability? Don't know, haven't used the shaper. It did, oh yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. At some point in the past day or two, I raised the raised the lathe up just a little bit. Right here. So I put it on risers. Now I can actually, on the other end, over here, I can actually, you know, without bumping my knuckles on the concrete, I can actually get that lathe lead screw turned conveniently. And I've got some storage space under here. I can get under there to clean. It could probably be more rigid left to right, but it's 2-inch square tube, 1/8 inch thick. You know, it doesn't seem to be negatively impacting the performance. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. The question is, am I going to do anything else after the mill? Any other gingery machines? I got to build the mill first. We'll see how it goes. So hopefully finish out this week, make some progress on the mill. Actually, you know, working on parts for the mill instead of camped out over here on maintenance mode, previous machine builds. So I think that's pretty much all I had. I think that's all the questions. Again, super happy to give y'all this Valentine's Day present. A lot of progress over here on the lathe and shaper. So back at the mill. I'll see you guys again on Monday. Thanks.